Picture this. It's May 6, 1937, a routine landing in New Jersey. Passengers are looking out the windows, crew members are manning their stations, and thousands of excited spectators are watching from the ground. And then, in the blink of an eye, the world's largest flying machine is just erased from the sky. It is absolutely one of history's most sudden, visually shocking, and infamous tragedies. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the Hindenburg disaster, the catastrophic event that permanently ended the age of airships.
To really wrap our heads around this catastrophe, we've got to start with a single number that defines the entire event: 34. 34 seconds is exactly how long it took for this absolute marvel of modern engineering to turn into an inescapable inferno. Think about that. The journey across the Atlantic, remarkably smooth. The landing seemed entirely routine. Yet, from the very first sudden flash to utter, complete destruction, only 34 seconds passed.
Because the destruction happened so incredibly fast, millions would later witness the shocking images captured by news cameras right there on the ground. But, it wasn't just the visuals that cemented this into our collective memory. It was the audio. A single radio broadcaster was covering what was supposed to be a triumphant arrival, and he had this completely raw, emotional reaction to the sudden burst of flames. His live broadcast of the catastrophe instantly became one of the most famous and honestly one of the most haunting recordings in human history.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the Flying Giant.
You have to remember, before jet aircraft existed, giant passenger Zeppelins were considered the absolute peak of luxury. And the Hindenburg? It was the undisputed king of the sky. Just consider its sheer, unbelievable scale for a second. Stretching more than 800 feet long, this flying machine actually dwarfed many of the era's premier steel ocean liners that were cutting through the Atlantic right below it. Just think about that, a flying vessel hovering up in the sky larger than the massive ships on the ocean. It was a literal visual marvel.
And inside that massive structure, it was a world of unparalleled comfort. Passengers crossing the Atlantic weren't crammed into tight little rows. No way. They were enjoying spacious dining rooms, elegant lounges, private cabins, and these stunning observation decks, where they could literally watch the ocean roll by beneath them. It was the ultimate elite travel experience, and it really cemented this powerful illusion of a perfect, completely safe, and highly civilized voyage.
Which brings us to Section 2, a dangerous secret.
Because, as we know now, that illusion of safety was masking a stark reality. While passengers were sipping cocktails in the glamorous lounges below, millions of cubic feet of highly flammable hydrogen gas were lurking right above their heads. Now, hydrogen is incredibly buoyant. That's what kept the whole marvel afloat. But it is also highly explosive. It was a deadly secret, just waiting for a single spark, completely capable of turning this engineering triumph into a devastating disaster.
Let's look at how it all unfolded in Section 3, the final landing.
The tension of this disaster actually built up over hours of seemingly routine delays. So, the Hindenburg departs Germany on May 3rd, and for days, the flight is flawless. Passengers are relaxed, crew members are doing their jobs exactly as trained. But on the morning of May 6th, thunderstorms over New Jersey force the crew into a waiting game. They hold off for safe conditions as thousands of people gather below. Finally, at 7:25 p.m., clearance is granted, and the giant airship begins its slow descent.
Nobody on the ground had any idea they were about to witness history, but at exactly 7:25 p.m., witnesses noticed something highly unusual. Just a sudden small flash appearing near the tail of the airship, and in a fraction of a second, that tiny flame found the highly flammable hydrogen gas.
And we've got to remember the human stakes here. There were 97 souls on board. Passengers and crew members who went from enjoying the quiet end of a luxury transatlantic voyage to suddenly being trapped in the sky. As the hydrogen ignited, the fire didn't just burn, it raced through that massive 800-foot structure at a completely incredible speed. Those 34 seconds were sheer chaos. The entire structure quickly became engulfed in roaring flames. Passengers frantically scrambled for survival as this majestic airship literally collapsed around them. Crew members, realizing the structure was falling out of the sky, were forced to jump from these dangerous, terrifying heights just to escape the inferno. Humanity's greatest flying machine was completely destroyed in less than a minute.
So what went wrong? Let's move to Section 4, investigating the inferno.
The shocking footage of this spread around the world instantly. But once the initial shock kind of wore off, the intense forensic investigation began. Investigators descended on the smoldering wreckage in New Jersey to answer one heavily debated question: what actually caused the fire?
I mean, how does a small flash just suddenly appear on the tail of the world's greatest aircraft?
Well, a few leading theories quickly emerged. Some experts confidently blamed static electricity, arguing that the thunderstorm weather had charged the atmosphere. Others strongly suspected it was a simple hydrogen leak. And, as with pretty much any major sudden disaster, conspiracy theories popped up fast. Because of the geopolitical climate of the 1930s, sabotage was heavily considered and actively investigated as a serious possibility.
Now, despite decades of exhaustive research, forensic analysis, and historical debate, no single explanation has ever been universally accepted. But if you look at the modern consensus, most experts today believe it was a deadly combination, a hydrogen leak combined with an electrical spark. That spark, maybe from the static electricity in the stormy air, ignited the leaking gas and triggered the catastrophe. Yet, the exact definitive cause? It remains a subject of intense debate to this very day.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the end of airships.
Because whatever the exact spark was, the fallout was absolute and immediate. Public confidence in giant passenger airships collapsed practically overnight. The era of the luxury passenger Zeppelin came to a hard, traumatic end. But as the airship industry experienced this sudden death, airplanes, which lacked that massive hydrogen risk and were much faster, quietly kept improving, eventually rising to completely dominate global travel. The torch of aviation was permanently passed.
Today, the Hindenburg remains one of history's most iconic and deeply studied disasters. It serves as this haunting reminder of the fragile illusion of safety. It proves, in a highly dramatic, almost cinematic fashion, that even the greatest, most luxurious technological achievements of an era can just disappear in a matter of seconds if a hidden flaw is exposed.
All it took was 34 seconds to change the future of flight forever. Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question to consider about our world right now. If a marvel of engineering, the very pinnacle of 1930s human achievement, can completely disappear in just 34 seconds, what modern technological giants are currently hiding a fatal flaw?